Thank you very much, Kagose, and also you double down as the Ambassador President for Zambia. The Honorable Minister of Green Economy and Environment, thank you very much for the amazing speech that you have laid out and putting it in perspective that this event today is not just for Zambia, but it's for the entire African continent. To all the invited guests, respectable colleagues from governments, media houses, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. It is a great honor to be discussing with you today on a topic that is so urgent, especially now that COP26 have come and the decisions are out. We need to then take a different dimension. Just imagine receiving a call from your banker that your account is overdrawn by 160%. Regardless of how much money you thought you had, such a message would terrifyingly mean that you have crossed the red line into the realm of bankruptcy. Such bad news is what our ecosystems are sending us. The United Nations Environment Programme and Food and Agricultural Organization months ago released a report which showed that humanity is using about 1.6 times the amount of services that nature provides sustainably. Our ecosystems are on a slippery pathway to bankruptcy. While these overdrawn accounts call for remedial action, the promise of benefits that lies ahead of us if we change course is a bigger motivation. Every $1 invested in ecological restoration creates up to $30 in economic benefits. Any investment that returns 30 times is a high value catch. In Zambia, Honorable Minister, ecosystem contribute up to 1.3 billion US dollars to the national economy, which translates to 6.7% of the GDP. They provide up to 1.4 million jobs and support up to 60% of rural households that are heavily dependent on these ecosystems for their livelihoods. But this benefit goes beyond the socio-economic dimensions as science tells us. As you already know, the findings of the Sixth Assessment Report, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which was released in August of this year, represented a watershed moment for the world and also for the African continent. This report, aptly called a red code, the code red for humanity, is that the globe is on its path to breaching the 1.5-degree warming in just 2 decades from today. For Africa, as we already know, Honorable Minister, already heating up twice as fast as the rest of the globe, this escalation only implies a compounding of socio-economic misery, which is already at the breaking point as we speak today. In the continent, as we speak today, 257 million Africans go to bed hungry. In the continent, as we speak today, over 12 million youth are getting into the labor market and looking for jobs which they cannot find. In the continent, as we speak today, over 60 million children are malnourished, costing up to 16% of the GDP of the entire African continent. The southern African region is warming at 1.5 times the global average, facing risk including a reduction in mean precipitation, increase in aridity, and drought, all of which adversely affect agriculture and contribute to a prolonged or projected up to 6% decline in GDP. This changing climate will cost Zambia up to 13.8 billion US dollars, and this causes unbearable for a country with over 1 million already facing acute food shortages between July and August and September of this year. Considering the need to drive food security and create income opportunities for Zambia's youth and build a thriving informal sector that creates livelihoods for up to 90% of the country's population, this cause cannot be allowed to go unabated. Healthy ecosystems stands out as a major arsenal against these apocalyptic consequences of the changing climate. Honorable Minister, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, beside averting droughts or floods or desertification among key risks, healthy ecosystems provide services valued at billions of dollars for Zambia, as earlier shared, and value at trillions of dollars globally every year. Investments in simple ecosystem-based adaptation approaches will adapt food systems to climate change with a return of investment of 400%. In Africa, as we speak today, healthy pollinators have increased yields by up to 180%. and incomes by up to $168 per farmer per season. In Zambia, these pollinators are responsible for all the major food plants and indigenous trees that are key to building healthy ecosystems to buffer against climate change risk. These benefits go beyond tourism. Anecdotally, across the continent, the Zai has been used successfully to rehabilitate hundreds of thousands of degraded land in the Sahel and increase yields by up to 500%. The minimum tillage, which has proven to increase yields by over 300% in some of the driest parts of Kenya, to crop diversification that has enhanced yields up to 2 times in Zambia, using sorghum in 2015 and 2016, when UNEP worked with Zari in a project called Ecosystem-Based Adaptation for Food Security Assembled, a crop, sorghum, that farmers can grow with or without fertilizers was actually experimented. We learned that the marginal lands that are easily prone to soil erosion with low soil fertility are thus prevented from degradation using sorghum open pollinated varieties. And these technologies, a low-cost technology, using this technology is practically zero because farmers rarely use fertilizers, insecticides or pesticides which have harmful effects on human beneficial insect plants and the environment. The sorghum open pollinated variety have the inherent capacity to hold soils and help farmers maintain a good soil structure under conservation farming because of organic matter buildup and soil nitrogen fixation beneficial to crops and fauna. The evidence in favor of EBA is overwhelming. It provides an objective basis for enhanced investments. Zambia has demonstrated its leadership in enhancing these investments by being among the first mover countries in the entire African continent and SADC to have submitted revised second-round nationally determined contributions NDCs. In your revised NDCs, the country has prioritized increased investments in climate-smart agriculture to enhance the resilience of its ecosystems, with the outcome of COP26 paving the way for full ambitious implementation. Zambia is in a perfect space to draw maximum benefit from its ecosystems. It is optimally positioned to leverage its ecosystem to maximize the productivity of food systems and unlock economic opportunities towards an inclusive green economy. In bridging gaps towards upscaling the proven successes of EBA to become a continental platform, the Ecosystem-Based Adaptation for Food Security Assembly, EBAFOSA, was established and endorsed through a ministerial decision of the African Ministerial Conference on the Environment in 2015. Over the years, EBAFOSA has provided an inclusive framework to mobilize inclusive partnerships across the entire African continent as called for in SDG 17 and Section 5 of the Paris Climate Change Agreement to drive innovative enablers towards upscaling EBA to build productive climate-resilient food systems and unlock economic opportunities. Honorable Minister, it is great and it's always honoring for us as UNEP to not only talk about Zambia, but talk about Zambia from what Zambia has done. Zambia was among the first countries in the entire continent to have domesticated and established the Ecosystem-Based Adaptation for Food Security National Branch, which is hosted in Zari. Its reactivation will go a long way to accrue benefits for Zambia's NDC's implementation and economic growth through climate-proof food systems, leveraging EBA and climate-smart agriculture. The following is how this can be achieved. The first is we must divest from ecosystem-based adaptation approaches silos to complement it with value addition. In the entire African continent, as we speak today, global NDC's ratification are 98%. But the big question we must answer is how implementation can be leveraged to climate-proof and enhance the productivity of food systems. The answer, Honorable Minister, is in 2 words: value addition. As much as EBA and climate-smart agriculture approaches have been shown to improve yields, on one side, Africa, as we speak today, loses up to $48 billion as post-harvest losses. Zambia loses over 30% of harvested food, translating to billions in lost income opportunities in a sector that employs over 70% of the population. By contrast, the copper mines, another area for which Zambia is globally renowned, engage a mere 17% of the population. This speaks to the economic significance of the agro-value chains, empowering real inclusive green growth that drives much needed socio-economic resilience of the majority. These agro-value chain losses are in food and incomes and ecological resources, expended in cultivating lost food. The income losses limit the ability of communities to invest in nature-based solutions. Through the EBA framework, we have leveraged an innovative approach called mitigation powering adaptation, where investments in nature-based solutions are complemented by mitigation actions, especially in clean energy, to justly transition communities to the low emissions pathway as we drive and bring adaptation solutions to scale. A simple example in Uganda through this framework, EBA using simple climate action solutions of solar dryers have been decentralized to benefit over 2,000 households with value addition in the Kingdom of Uganda in less than 1 year. During the COVID-19 period, while others were counting losses arising from the closure of market, communities assess climate action solutions of solar dryers decentralized through this framework. These ensure that a reduction of pumpkin losses, for example, by 28%, enhance earnings from high-quality dry cassava by $50 per farmer group while creating incomes for the youth who decentralize these dryers. The implications, Honorable Minister, was ecological resources expended in cultivation were saved and incomes were increased to enable more investments in nature-based solutions. That takes me to the second point, which is unlocking niche markets through nature-based solutions. Increased public knowledge of the link between what we eat and our health is becoming clear to many, making consumers across the continent and the world more sophisticated on their food choices to prefer validated, natural, non-chemicalized food. And there is a great market segment of consumers who are ready to pay up to 3 times the price of conventional foods for certified organic, healthy, and EBA. EBA has provided a convening framework where national standard bureaus of countries across the continent have been guided to integrate nature-based solutions and clean energy solutions as affordable, practical tools to achieve compliance. This creates a pull factor for the upscale application of EBA, and in complementarity with clean energy to further extend the benefits. And through this, we can bring nature-based solutions to scale through a market lens. That takes me to the third point, which is leveraging local communal institutions as conduits to bring climate action and nature-based solutions for food security to scale. Honorable Minister, we are in a continent that is actually built on the fabric of local institutions. And we cannot be able to ignore this when we are building climate resilience of food systems. While smallholder farmers in the continent who are part of Africa's vast informal sector that engages up to 80% of the population are champions in fostering the application of nature-based solutions, they have local communal institutions. And they belong to these institutions. And EBA is convening these communal cooperatives called village savings and loan associations to have their members already using these nature-based solutions to cooperate around assessing value addition solutions of simple climate action solar dryers. Through these assets, they cut their post-harvest losses to increase their revenues. Through these assets, they save and create a saving and investment cycle in nature-based solutions to bridge the critical gaps. And that takes me to the fourth point, which is leveraging on local governance structures. Across the continent, local governance structures trusted by communities offered an effective conduit for bringing adaptation to scale. We cannot ignore this if we are to implement indices in the continent. And as you rightly said, Honorable Ministers, we must leverage also locally available, viable solutions that are accessible to the majority of the communities in the continent and in the country in Zambia as well. Through EBA, local government structures, for example, like Buganda Kingdom in Uganda, Nasarawa Emirates in Nigeria, and amongst others have been leveraged as structures for mobilizing local communities to bring climate action to scale, to take up nature-based solutions. And these communities, these local, offer the shortest route by which climate science proof of concept can be quickly transitioned to become policy and then get implemented. As an example, in the Buganda Kingdom, through practical demonstration from our work, the local governance structure has taken up nature-based solutions and clean energy solutions in enhancing the productivity of the cassava value chains. And this has informed policy on job creation from cassava value chains, as well as engagement of communal cooperatives, through which members are investing more in these climate actions. That takes me to the fifth point, which is skills retooling. You cannot address any challenge while ignoring your own powerhouse. Africa's powerhouse and Zambia's powerhouse are her youth. They are a powerhouse and they can be tapped to drive nature-based solutions representing a formidable strategy for the continent to win the war against climate change. We have developed an incubation space called innovative volunteerism, where willing young people are guided and convened under the Ebafosa framework. And they are structurally guided and inspired to retool their skills and upscale these nature-based solutions as they turn their passions into profits. While land may be inaccessible to many of these youths across the continent, through Ebafosa, they are being guided to intervene along the value chain. Through this, they are fabricating and decentralizing these simple clean energy solutions of solar dryers to power value addition and limit the waste of ecosystem goods and services lost as post-harvest losses. We are seeing them recovering agricultural waste and turning these into fertilizers. And these young people are also sharing their experiences and lessons online to influence more youth to take up innovative volunteerism as a tool to bring climate action solutions impact to scale as they build resilient food systems. And that takes me to the last point, which is data for policy. Africa doesn't lack pro-nature-based solutions policies. The countries in the continent are actually champions and leaders in putting policies in place. But the gap always lies in implementation. And we are using the data emerging from the ground, especially nature-based solutions applied in a continuum to bridge this gap and ensure more targeted incentives that focus on enabling proven successes are established. For example, data on the efficacy of nature-based solutions of EBA approach on increasing yields and solar dryers in preventing aflatoxin among informal food producers was used to recalibrate national food standards codes in Uganda and Nigeria as affordable means for achieving compliance. Honorable Minister, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, these principles I have shared, which we are driving through the Ebafosa framework, cannot be actualized without a full exercise of what I call non-policy incentives, what we call soft aspects. I am talking about inspiration. I'm talking about selflessness and boldness and fidelity to a cause beyond ourselves. These are the building blocks of purposeful passion. Passion is the fuel that moves ideas into real-life solutions. Without passion, you throw money at every problem and waste it and end up with no result. Passion is the real winner because regardless of what we contribute, if it falls on passion-led use, then no transformation will occur. And it is people who drive development for themselves. This calls for the right mindset, which is irreplaceable in motivating all of us to action. And we owe ourselves the task of doing so to drive the principles that I've shared. And adding to what the minister have already said, in life cycles, a unique challenge befalls one generation, which must be solved to guarantee the safe existence of future generations. Climate change is the challenge of our generation, and we have to change course now to guarantee both present and future generations. Let us therefore pull together to build climate-resilient food systems as we bring nature-based solutions to the center of Zambia's NDC's implementation and socio-economic growth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Munangi. Papers. I think you have also reinvigorated me as the president of Ebafosa Zambia to a core of action. We can have so many policies, but if there's no implementation, there is nothing. So, and I know that there are a number of members of Ebafosa who are also present in this meeting, and most of them, they come from the sector, the agricultural sector. So I think we're being called to reignite our resolve to making Ebafosa a reality, or the objective of Ebafosa a reality in Zambia. Thank you very much, Doctor.